If you're a Beatles fan like me, then you probably know that their influence extends far beyond music. They also made long-lasting impacts in film, from the early fun-loving romps to their moves in experimental and psychedelic projects. Each Beatles movie offers a unique glimpse into the band's creativity, humor, and ever-evolving artistry. But which one stands out from the rest? First, I'll give you a brief history about each of these movies in chronological order. And then join us as we rank A Hard Day's Night, Help, Magical Mystery Tour, Yellow Submarine, and Let It Be from worst to best, and I'll explain why I ranked them in this way. And stay to the end because I just may surprise you. Let's get going. A Hard Day's Night, 1964, is a British musical comedy film featuring the Beatles at the height of Beatlemania. Directed by Richard Lester, the film offers a fictionalized yet humorous portrayal of a day in the life with the iconic band. The story follows John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr as they navigate chaotic encounters with fans, the press, and various mishaps while preparing for a televised concert. Known for its fast-paced editing, witty dialogue, and memorable performances, the film blends satire with musical numbers showcasing songs like A Hard Day's Night, Can't Buy Me Love, and She Loves You. It remains a landmark in music cinema, praised for its innovative style and influence on pop culture. Help, 1965, is a British musical comedy adventure film starring the Beatles. Directed again by Richard Lester, it follows the band as it becomes entangled in a zany plot involving a mysterious cult. The story revolves around Ringo Starr, who unwittingly acquires a sacrificial ring that a fan mails to him. The ring's connection to an Eastern cult puts Ringo in danger, leading the band on a wild chase across London, the Australian Alps, and the Bahamas as they try to escape from the group's clutches. Filled with slapstick humor, surreal scenes, and iconic Beatles songs like Help, You Gotta Hide Your Love Away, and Ticket to Ride, the film is known for its playful tone and vibrant visual style. Magical Mystery Tour, 1967, is a surreal experimental film by the Beatles, written and directed by the band themselves. The plot follows a loosely structured journey where the band, along with a group of eccentric passengers, embark on a mystery bus tour filled with bizarre encounters and psychedelic sequences. Blending comedy, music, and avant-garde style visuals, the film features iconic Beatles tracks such as I Am the Walrus, The Fool on the Hill, and Your Mother Should Know. While initially met with mixed reviews, Magical Mystery Tour has since gained a cult following for its imaginative style and unique reflection of the band's creative freedom during the 1960s. Yellow Submarine, 1968, is an animated musical fantasy film featuring the Beatles. Directed by George Dunning, the film follows the band as they journey to a colorful underwater world of Pepperland, which has been overrun by the music-hating Blue Meanies. With the help of their iconic Yellow Submarine, the Beatles team up with characters like Old Fred to restore peace and joy to the land through music. Known for its vibrant psychedelic animation style and imaginative visuals, the film showcases memorable Beatles songs like All You Need Is Love, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and Eleanor Rigby. Yellow Submarine is celebrated for its artistic innovation and remains a beloved classic in both animation and music history. Let It Be, 1970, is a documentary-style film that captures the Beatles during the recording sessions for what would become their final album. Directed by Michael Lindsay Hogg, the film offers an intimate look into the band's creative process, rehearsals, and personal tensions as they work on new material. While the documentary highlights moments of collaboration and iconic performances, it also reveals a growing stain within the group. The film culminates the Beatles' famous rooftop concert atop the Apple Corps building, their final live performance together, Featuring songs like Let It Be, Get Back, and The Long and Winding Road, the film provides a poignant glimpse into the band's final chapter. So now that you have a little background of each of their films, it's time to rank them. Now, this is only my opinion, but I would like to see your opinions in the comments. I'd like to know your list. I do have my reasons. Let me explain. So let's get started. Number 5, Yellow Submarine. Why is this movie ranked so low? Well, for starters, the number one reason for me is, unlike A Hard Day's Night, Help, Magical Mystery Tour, the Beatles had very little to do with Yellow Submarine. They didn't even voice their own animated characters. They used voice actors instead. And they only appear briefly in a live-action segment at the very end of the film. This makes the movie feel less personal and authentic compared to the other films. So that is like my super number one reason, is that it feels like just a cartoon with their approval. And they just really had no involvement whatsoever. And they just had to fill in. They were signed for a contract to have this last film done, and they really were just uninterested in making the film itself. The plot, it was so thin. While the film is really like stunning with its beautiful visuals, it just is the Beatles traveling to Pepperland to save it from the Blue Meanies. And the journey is more like an excuse for psychedelic animation rather than a really well-structured narrative, making it feel kind of aimless and disjointed. Because the Beatles really weren't involved, it lacks their personality, their charm, their witty banter, and the comedic timing they had with each other. So when you look at films like A Hard Day's Night and Help and even Magical Mystery Tour, you don't see that, spontaneous Beatles magic, it's kind of lost. I think the film also can appear dated. Its animation is very 60s culture with the psychedelic looks, and it really does feel dated. Even unlike A Hard Day's Night, which is in black and white, it still looks like, I don't know, it just has that feel that's not a really nice cartoon. It's more like a really cartoon of the times. And at its core, I think Yellow Submarine is more of an animated experiment than like a traditional Beatles movie. It features their music, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't showcase them as performers or them as actors or anything like that. And that's why Yellow Submarine is number 5 and the least film that I don't even watch. Like, I watched it once and it didn't feel like them. Number 4, Magical Mystery Tour. With this one, I'm going to give you a little bit of pros and cons. So, pros. It has some of the best music videos in this film. We have John singing I Am the Walrus, Paul on Full on the Hill, George on Blue Jay Way, and Your Mother Should Know at the end, which is super nice. And the music sequences are probably the film's strongest aspect that I can think of. It was a very 60s movie. It captures the psychedelic spirit at the late 60s, and it has vibrant colors, surreal imagery, and it's an unconventional storytelling. It's visually interesting for fans of avant-garde style filmmaking, and it's actually recently got a cult following. Unlike the other films, this was entirely their project, conceived, directed, produced by the Beatles themselves. Now, it was, I would say it's basically Paul's project, but they were willing to get into it and put their 2 cents in. It showcases their willingness to push artistic boundaries, even if it didn't always work. And I mentioned before, it's since gained a cult following, with many appreciating the experimental nature and the oddball charm. You kind of got the Beatles as they were, and let's face it, this film was full of the Beatles. I mean, you saw them in pretty much every scene. if not one or the other. I mean, they were throughout the movie, they were there. Cons. Oh boy. Unlike A Hard Day's Night and Help, you really kind of miss the innocent nature of them in the beginning of their, story. And this really lacks a structure. It's more random collective scenes, and it lacks a clear story, which makes it directionless. It's kind of strange. Since this was made for television on a low budget, the production values are noticeable. They're very weak compared to the other Beatles films, and some of the scenes may feel a little amateurish or poorly directed. It's very disjointed. While the psychedelic visuals are fun, many scenes feel unnecessary, just outright bizarre. There's no guiding narrative. I mean, they're just on a tour bus, stopping at random places. It initially got really bad critical and commercial failure in 1967 when it first came out, and that is because it was aired on British television in black and white and without the color. Let's face it, this movie is just a flop. And we did lack a lot of the Beatles' charm, the younger, charisma of the Beatles. But, we did get the Beatles, which I'm very happy about, unlike Yellow Submarine. So that is the strongest point of it. It's a fascinating experiment that works well with the psychedelic music, but it does struggle as a traditional movie. But it's an essential movie for hardcore Beatle fans, but it may not appeal to the general audience due to its lack of structure and polished story. So that's why I ranked this number 4. Number 3, Help. Okay, I got some pros and cons here again. So let's start with the pros. This movie was probably my favorite growing up. It has the greatest soundtrack. I mean, you got Help, you got to Hide Your Love Away, Ticket to Ride, The Night Before, Another Girl. It just was super fun. The music sequences are so highlighted in this movie. Unlike the tense and serious Let It Be, Help is funny and zany and bizarre and silly, and it takes them on this James Bond kind of adventure where they're getting chased, and it just has that appeal of the Beatles' playfulness, and it's not taken too seriously, which is great to a certain extent. But yeah, we'll get to that. And unlike A Hard Day's Night, Help was their first movie in color. Bright, vivid colors, different exotic locations like the Bahamas, the Australian Alps. It's so nice to watch, and there's just so much fun going on. You could see it. Help is a full-fledged action-adventure film with a storyline and cults and spies and chases. You get to see the band's witty chemistry and their banter, and the film is entertaining, even when the plot gets super ridiculous, but we'll talk about that, later. And their deadpan humor and self-awareness was super good. I mean, you could tell they weren't professional actors. They'd look at each other and they'd laugh a little bit, and you get the little smile, and that adds to the charm, And this was very influential on music videos. You had them not just performing, but just running around and having a good time. But let's get to the cons. To say it was over the top and nonsensical, the plot revolves a mysterious Eastern cult chasing Ringo because he accidentally got their secret ring stuck on his finger because a fan sent it to him and he put it on, and the plot is a bit absurd and it can get a little goofy and random at times. This film was less focused on the Beatles themselves. A Hard Day's Night was all about the Beatles and their personalities and them running around, and it was like a day in a life with the Beatle. This was more a movie starring the Beatles. So it was not, they weren't in every, scene, and, it was more of a structured kind of movie. It's got very dated stereotypes. So the film's depiction of other cultures, especially like the Eastern cult villain, they're kind of outdated, and yeah, today you could probably say it would be unacceptable, and the Beatles weren't really fully engaged. At this point, they were smoking weed, and they were smoking it a lot on film. Well, not on film, but while filming. And so they seemed very disinterested in some spots, you know. They were kind of just goofing off and were high most of the time. They even admitted to it. It was silly in some respects. It was almost too silly. The humor is very exaggerated. It's got some slapstick gags and surreal elements that won't appeal to everyone. So my final verdict on this being number 3, it's visually stunning. You get to see these great music videos and them performing and running around and have fun, but it's a bit over the top and the culture stereotypes is kind of a bit dated, but it's still a must-see for every Beatles fan. So that's why I ranked it number 3. Number 2, A Hard Day's Night. I know what you're saying. Calm down. Just let me get through this. Pros. It captures the Beatles at their peak. This film showcases the Beatles in their early prime, just hitting the sensation that they became. They were young, they were energetic, they were full of charm, and it's a perfect time capsule of the Beatles during Beatlemania. The movie, it's humor, it's sharp, it's witty, it's genuinely funny. The Beatles' nature, the comedic timing, the deadpan delivery, it's just entertaining even today. Richard Lester did this as well as help, and his directing style. He used things that weren't done before. He used handheld cameras, quick cuts, documentary-style shooting, and it really influenced music videos and modern filmmaking. It features the best early days Beatles music, A Hard Day's Night, Can't Buy Me Love, I Should Have Known Better, If I Fell, and the music scenes are just seamless and integrated into the film so well. It really explores the chaos during the Beatles' fame, from the screaming fans to the media pressure and them running all over the place, doing this and doing that. It's a semi-fictional but authentic look at their whirlwind lifestyle. And each Beatle kind of gets their moment to shine. Now, here's a little bit of a pro and con. It definitely pigeonholed John's wit and Paul's charm and George's dry humor and Ringo's lovable goofiness. And it did make them real and relatable at the time, but it also pigeonholed them later on down the line, which kind of probably ticked them all off because they were more than just their little wit, charm, dry humor, and goofiness as individuals. A Hard Day's Night really set the template for rock movies and music videos. Its fast-paced editing and visual storytelling were way ahead of its time. Okay, let's go to the cons. The movie is more a day-in-the-life experience rather than a structured story. It loosely follows the Beatles running from fans, doing press, preparing for a performance, and it's not much happens plot-wise. That's just basically it. Since it was made in 1964, it can feel a little outdated or old-fashioned. It's the black and white cinematography and fast-paced dialogue may not appeal to all viewers. Compared to Help, A Hard Day's Night is more grounded and realistic. Fans looking for psychedelic visuals or that 60s or end of 60s feel, they might find the sequences less exciting. I personally do not. I would prefer seeing the Beatles like they are in this film, but some people may not. If you're not already a Beatles fan, the film may not have that same magic. It's designed as a love letter to personalities and music rather than a deeply engaging story like a documentary or anything like that. So my final verdict is A Hard Day's Night is widely regarded as one of the best rock movies ever made. Its humor, its music, its innovative style makes it a classic if you're a Beatles fan. While it might lack a strong plot, its charm and influence on music and film are undeniable, and it's a must-watch film for any Beatles fan and even film lovers. So that's why that is number 2. So if you made it this far, you obviously know what my number 1 is. And I know you might be disagreeing, this is my opinion, but please stay to the end and listen to why this is the best film to watch if you're a Beatles fan. Let's get started. So why is Let It Be the best Beatles movie? It is often seen as such a sad and somber film due to the band's breakup, but it is the most honest and realistic look at the Beatles out of all their movies. Unlike previous films, which are scripted or stylized, Let It Be is raw, it's unfiltered, and it captures the band as they truly were, with the flaws, the tensions, the creativity, and all. It's an incredible look behind the scenes. This is the first time fans got to see the Beatles working in the studio, crafting a song from scratch. It's a rare, intimate glimpse into their creative process, something like no other Beatles film provides with such depth. It's more of a documentary than a film. I mean, it's a film, but it's a documentary. While A Hard Day's Night and Help are scripted comedies, Let It Be is a real-time snapshot of the band's crossroads. It's not just entertainment, it's history. And instead of it being a carefree, youthful Beatles of the early film days, Let It Be presents them as mature musicians dealing with creative differences, but still capable of making incredible music. It also captures the development of timeless songs like Let It Be, Get Back, Two of Us, The Long and Winding Road, and these classics come to life as the film is being made, essentially for us to view. It is the last concert the Beatles ever performed, and that is the climax to the end of the movie, which it explores. It's the unplanned rooftop concert on top of Apple Corps, which is a legendary moment showcasing the Beatles playing together for one last time in a pure and unfiltered way. It was emotional. You knew it was coming to the end. By the time this movie came out, they were broken, right? They were broken. Everybody knew it. But now, looking back on it, it's got this bittersweet quality. It showcases their tensions, but it also highlights the deep connection between the band members. And the final moments, especially during The Long and Winding Road, feel like a poignant farewell. And it's truly sad. But it also gives you the Beatles in a raw Beatles look. They were who they were in that movie. So, my final verdict. While Let It Be isn't the most fun Beatles movie, it is the most important one. It captures the history as it happened, giving the fans, you and me, an unfiltered look at the greatest band of all times in their final days together. It's a raw, authentic movie. It is probably the best movie for fans to want to learn about their legacy. So while every fan's going to have their favorite, these films collectively showcase the Beatles' evolution. Each movie offers a unique way to experience the magic of the Beatles. So let me know what's your favorite Beatles movie, and how do you rank them? Leave it in the comments below. Also, just a note, subscriptions are free, likes are free, and it does help with the algorithm. And if you could hit me either with a like, subscribe, or both, it would be super appreciated. So until next time, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.